אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת.
All right, so let's transition to part 2. We're going to talk about anti-Semitism and your own experience. First, in this discussion about anti-Semitism, I can't help but notice what's happening here in the United States and across the world. Certainly in my lifetime, experiencing some of the most intense and frequent anti-Semitic views pouring into the mainstream. The rise of people like Nick Fuentes. Of course, the crisis in Gaza has spurred a context of anti-Semitism as well. What is happening in America? Why is it happening now? And what is anti-Semitism?
Well, part of the problem is that anti-Semitism is hard to define, right? Because normally you'd talk about the hatred of or the oppression of or something along those lines. But when a part of anti-Semitism is the notion that Jews are the ultimate evil that have to be destroyed, or that Jews are controlling the world, and some people would say, look, you control everything. I mean, I'm not hating on you. That's just a reality. It's not a reality, right? That's not the reality. And it's the myths, and the conspiracy theories around Judaism that make this very, very challenging and very, very difficult. So it's not just a hatred of Jews or a prejudice against Jews. It's about some of the really crazy and outrageous beliefs about Jews. I mean, there are people that would that don't like Jews because they see Jews as the killers of Jesus, when it was the Romans. But at the same time, that label stuck with the Jews for a very, very long time, and some people still hold it today. There is a belief that Jews would kill children, Christian children, or now in more modern ways of looking at it, Muslim children, and drink their blood, called blood libel. That's never been a part of Jewish tradition. And it would be laughable if entire Jewish communities hadn't been destroyed because people thought that this was the reality. Once the church voted to make, to identify communion wafers as the actual body of Jesus, that led to a whole nother level of anti-Semitism where people believed, because they thought that Jews killed Jesus, the Jews would want to kill Jesus all over again. And so there's this idea of the consecration of the host, where Jewish communities would be accused of kidnapping communion wafers so we could kill Jesus all over again. And
even an attack like that, I just have to make a comment here, is actually a fairly sophisticated attack. Because it shows that, at least in the view of the victims here, of the Christians, that the Jews are knowledgeable that the wafer is Jesus and intend to kill Jesus again. So it shows that really the Jews are not just people who are engaged in heinous, violent acts, but are very spiritually motivated to do this.
No, but I mean, yes, it's a sophisticated attack, and it's just crazy. But while it's ridiculous, you actually have on the wall of a church in the 15th century, an Italian church, you have a depiction. You've got a Jewish family that's inside. You've got a communion wafer that has been stabbed, and it's miraculous. It's bleeding, right? You have this, you have the blood, and you see the picture of the blood that comes out, and it trickles through a hole in the wall. And outside, you have soldiers with spears and swords, and one of them is looking down, seeing the blood that's coming out through the wall. And so you have the witness, and the soldiers are about to break down the door and come in and kill the Jews. Somebody spent a lot of money to put that on a church, right? And that was a sign of spiritual upliftment. It was a spiritually uplifting image, because while it's an attack on the Jews, it's more than that. It's really about the sanctity of the communion wafers and the miracle that a communion wafer could actually bleed. And so it's, but the Jews are the ones who are getting attacked in the process. And that's the challenge, and that's the difficulty. But in today's world, I mean, within the past few months, right? We're January 26th. And so just a month or two ago, you actually had at a Washington, D.C. train station, outside Union Station, you had a table that was set up that had President Trump, President Biden, Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and others. I think Blinken was there, and Marco Rubio was, like, people with masks, right? Depicting this, that we're all eating the organs of Palestinian children. So that's the blood libel, not the communion wafer, but the idea that these things, these notions, these ideas hang around and have hung around. We can talk about anti-Semitism today. We can talk about the protocols of the elders of Zion, the belief that Jews are controlling the world, and other such things around that. But you have some of these more ancient forms of anti-Semitism that are absolutely outrageous, that are being shared and spread on social media in today's world, right? And right now, when social media makes it really easy to spread things, and social media companies have basically taken a step back and said, we're okay if hate speech is on our platform. And that's basically, by not taking action, that's basically what they are saying. And that's not just against Jews, that's against any group of people, and every group of people. We see it. And so it's a major, major challenge when it's so easy to spread these lies and spread this hate and spread this extremism. And this is the kind of thing that leads to just some of the most recent attacks, right? Which are, I mean, from the Tree of Life Synagogue in 2018, we had 11 worshipers who were killed just for being Jewish, just for coming to synagogue to pray that day. The 2019 Poway synagogue shooting, where one person was killed, 3 people were injured, including the rabbi, at a small Chabad in Poway, California. You had a kosher grocery store that was attacked in December of 2019. You have a machete attack in Monsey. Monsey is a very Orthodox area, ultra-Orthodox area, Monsey, New York. And so somebody comes to a Hanukkah party. With a machete, stabbing several people. One person later died of those injuries. We were concerned prior to October 7th, 2023, we were concerned about the dramatic increase in anti-Semitism that was happening. And that did lead to the incident that happened to me, where we had this person who came from England, traveled all the way from England to Colleyville, Texas, where I was the rabbi at the time, and took me and my congregants hostage for 11 hours. He wanted to get a convicted terrorist out of prison. His mantra for that day, he said it over and over and over again: I love death more than you love life. That's what he kept saying over and over and over again. And he truly, truly believed all the anti-Semitic lies. He believed that Jews controlled everything. He believed that America, wouldn't harm its Jews, and so he could take some Jews hostage and he would get whatever he wanted, right? And unfortunately, after October 7th, we went in 2022, from almost 3,700 incidents, anti-Semitic incidents, as recorded by the Anti-Defamation League, to close to 9,000 in 2023, the vast majority of which took place after October 7th, and over 9,000 in 2024. I haven't seen the numbers from 2025, but in a decade, and from 2015 to 2024, it was an increase of almost 900% when it comes to anti-Semitic incidents. And so
that doesn't include, of course, me and you have had these conversations before, my own experience, your experiences. It's not like every single instance of anti-Semitism that occurs is reported. A lot of times, right, people keep these sort of things to themselves or just within their communities and their families. But certainly, I think the Jewish community around the United States, the Jewish communities around the United States have experienced and realized that those statistics are part of each of our lived experiences now.
Right, and it's not just like the small things, right? I mean, because just in the past, 7 months or so, I mean, it was just this past May where 2 people were killed outside of the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. And less than a month later, in June, you have a firebomb Molotov attack in Colorado, where 1 person was ultimately killed, multiple people were injured. The Bondi Beach massacre in Australia last month was absolutely horrific, and we just had a couple weeks ago the arson at Beth Israel Congregation in Jackson, Mississippi. But I do want to say that it's not like when you talk about the impact post October 7th. This is the challenge, is that it's not just about people wanting and advocating for equal rights for all Palestinians and a Palestinian state, right? When people, like at Origins High School, this is in Brooklyn, New York, you had 40 to 50 students that are waving the Palestinian flag, but what are they chanting? They're chanting "Kill the Jews," right? And a 10th grade teacher, a history teacher who was Jewish, was told by her student, one student, a 10th grader, said, "I wish you were killed." Another student said, again, to her face, that Hitler should have hit more Jews, including her. I mean, so we're seeing this growth in anti-Semitism from the left wing, more in a response to what's taken place in Gaza. And we're also seeing it from the right wing. People like Holocaust deniers, like Nick Fuentes, and so many others, right?
Well, that's interesting because, Nick Fuentes got his, kind of got on the radar because he was condemning what Israel was doing in Gaza, as if he cared about Palestinian rights. And then the next thing we hear is that, oh, Hitler is cool. We get this mask off moment. And so it seems to me that some have taken this opportunity to cloak their anti-Semitism in a veneer of concern or human rights or something like that. But then we get these real mask off moments where obviously some of the worst villains in history are being celebrated and championed, showing that really there's not a true and genuine concern for human rights, because no one who could be concerned for human rights could celebrate some of the worst perpetrators and violators of human rights in human history.
No, I mean, but the language is not subtle, right? And we see this, like Elmo got hacked this past July, right? And what did the hacker have Elmo say? Elmo says all Jews should die. F the Jews. That was all spelled out. Donald Trump is Netanyahu's puppet because he is in the Epstein files. Jews control the world and need to be exterminated, right? And it's not just that. You also end up with back in September, after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, which was horrific on so many different levels. But you have people post, that Jews did JFK, Jews did 9/11, and Jews did Charlie Kirk, right? The Jews are responsible for all of the bad. Jews have been, it's been claimed that Jews were responsible for COVID, all sorts of ridiculousness. But the challenge is that somebody posts that and you have thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people that will like those hateful posts, right? And that's the world that we're living in. And that's the challenge, and that's the difficulty, which is why, like when it comes to the idea of Holocaust denial, that what we're seeing in America today by our current administration, you can love the administration or hate the administration, but one of the things that we all should do is be protesting against the erasure of our history. When we're erasing our history, that has a major, major challenge to our understanding of who we are. And to erase the Holocaust, Germany's certainly not doing it. Right. And you certainly don't have many Americans are talking about and protesting against how wrong it is for the United States government to remove the massacre of Native Americans or the enslavement and all of the horrors of slavery that took place. That cannot be and should not be covered over, dismissed. It is a part of our identity, and it still very much has an impact in today's world. These are vitally important issues. And so in the same way that hate against one group, there's a lot of hate against Muslims and people who are transgendered. There's a lot of hate against Jews, and the Jewish community certainly feels the brunt of it. There's so much hate against immigrants and refugees, right? There's a lot of hate, period, right? And we are seeing hate, whether you're coming from a more progressive standpoint or whether you're coming from a more conservative standpoint, we're seeing hate from all different areas. It's a part of the air that we are breathing. It's a part of the water that we're swimming in. And it's really incumbent upon all of us to do what we can to stop the spread, to try to confront people, not with more hate, with curiosity. Did you really mean to say that? And if so, I want you to know that's not okay. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of support. People who would want to see less hate being spread, less conspiracy theories spread, less lies spread. We have a hard time of it. because in the world today, again, we don't have a lot of guardrails, and that makes it very, very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the way that social media has proliferated, that the content that tends to explode, go viral, is that is most controversial, the most provocative.
That's how the algorithms work. Absolutely.
And I told you of an event where I was on a show, and the Holocaust was being ridiculed and demeaned as the Smolocaust, to my complete and utter shock. So what's happening in America, what's happening around the world with anti-Semitism is very real. It's very unsettling. The oppression of different minority groups as well, as you named. So this is a very interesting time to be alive, to be vigilant, to be Jewish at this time. And I think, you're absolutely right that we do have to confront these voices with rationality, with peace, with love, with understanding, but also with a certain degree of intolerance, right? That, isolating people, disenfranchising them, making them feel like that they're not part of the human experience, the national story, that their lives don't matter. We do need to provide the safeguards where clearly in our society at this time, there just aren't that many that are present.
And one of the realities is that when it comes to hate and the proliferation of hate groups, hate organizations, is that, you have situations, multiple situations, where people join these groups because not because these are the beliefs that are offered, but because this is the group that has said, I can be a part of their community, right? And so if we actually were to work harder to extend the hand of hospitality, to see someone in need, regardless of background, and as a community to acknowledge, I see you and I care about you, I think that we would have a lot less hate in the world because people wouldn't go looking for something that they can't find anywhere else and have to use hate as that expression. The more we can do to show that all people are connected, that human life is sacred and holy, that, the idea of love your neighbor is an important mitzvah, an important commandment, but love your stranger comes up a lot more because loving the stranger is a lot harder. It's a lot harder, but we see it throughout the text. I read our Bible, and I read Jewish tradition as one that is encouraging empathy and compassion. Remember that you were slaves in the land of Egypt. And so therefore, let that memory encourage you to have that, to impact how you treat others. And right now in the world today, you're actually seeing people, religious leaders as well as political leaders, castigating compassion, denigrating empathy. And that's something that I don't understand and don't have a lot of tolerance for. But again, that idea of looking for ways to reach out, looking for ways to share and spread the message of connection, of humanity, that every human being was created with dignity and beauty. That's something that all of us need and are entitled to.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Thank you. And I think we can leave it there with that powerful message, those commandments to love thy neighbor as thyself and to love the foreigner. I think that those words certainly ring heavy for me and hopefully across America and the world. Well, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you for joining me on the Temple Podcast. And thank you all. And good night.